What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Season 20, Episode 7 of Hitting the Fields. The NBA season is nearing its end with only about 10 games left in the season. Men's March Madness is still kicking with the Sweet 16 beginning tonight, and the NFL offseason is gearing up for the draft. But we're not talking about any of that yet, as today we have an exciting show for you. We kick it off by previewing the MLB Opening Day slate. Then we take a look at how the F1 season has started. And finally, we'll update you on how Women's March Madness has been going. You don't want to miss any of it. Don't go anywhere because Hitting the Field starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
And welcome back. Joining me to my right is Robert Hudson, and to my left is Augie Aronson. How are you guys doing, Robert?
I'm doing fantastic. Last time I was here, I talked F1. That season started off with a bang, and now we're here to start about another start of the season with the MLB. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And Augie?
It's opening day. Baseball's back. I am so excited to scream, "Blue, that was outside!" Or what are you looking at? I'm excited. I'm really excited.
I totally agree. Now, the first game for opening day is the game I'm going to be talking about. It pitches off in about 3 hours from now. The Brewers visiting the Yankees. Now, the Yankees are going to be without Juan Soto. It's not unusual. Juan Soto was only there for a year, but it is still a big loss after he signed with the Mets. But we've talked about that. They also don't have their starting pitcher, Garrett Cole, after undergoing Tommy John surgery. So the big matchup in this game is going to be Aaron Judge and Christian Yelich. Aaron Judge, one of the best players in baseball, undoubtedly, led the league. That's why that's italicized with 58 home runs, 144 RBI, and had a 1.159 OPS. Ridiculous numbers. Christian Yelich wasn't too shabby himself, but he's no Aaron Judge. There's no doubt about that. Also, in the pitching game, we mentioned Garrett Cole will be out. Carlos Rodon is the new starter. They also added Max Fried in free agency, and the closer, interestingly enough, is going to be Devin Williams, who spent his first 6 seasons with the Brewers before being traded to New York in December. The Yankees also added Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt, who's kind of past his prime. We all know that, but Cody Bellinger, good addition. To go with, obviously, Judge, Jazz Chisholm, former Marlin, who they traded for last season. Anthony Volpe, who is looking to have another good season. He improved a lot in the playoffs this past season. And Giancarlo Stanton, who is on a 10-day injury, so he won't be ready in a couple hours. But they still have him. So any thoughts on this game, Robert?
Purely about the Yankees, not so much the individual game, but with, as you mentioned, Paul Goldschmidt and moving in, definitely a little bit of an upgrade on Anthony Rizzo's performance from last year specifically. Both of them are huge names at first base. But with Garrett Cole, you look at the Yankees and you wonder, how are they going to replace him? They were originally looking at dealing Marcus Stroman to get his contract off the books, but with their rotation now in tatters, what are you looking at? I mean, Augie, I know we had a great debate about potential replacements, but we also agreed Max Fried from free agency wasn't enough.
No.
And the Brewers do also have William Contreras, who had 23 home runs and 92 RBIs last season. Silver Slugger Award, 2-time All-Star. This guy is very good, but he, again, is no Aaron Judge. He's one of the best players in baseball. He's looking for his 4th straight season in a row batting over 1,000 OPS and another 50-plus home run season. So I think the Yankees are going to take this game. They're going to have another great season, but we do want to move on. Augie, you're going to be talking about the Pirates and our Miami Marlins?
Yes.
Okay.
Our Miami Marlins.
Okay,
Now,
unfortunately.
Look. I know this isn't the flashy, sexy game that everybody wants to watch, as it's Pirates Marlins. But boy, if you are a baseball fan, this is the game for you because this is 2 of the best pitchers in the league. Paul Skeens obviously getting the ball. Sandy Alcantara coming back from Tommy John. You see his 2022 stats on there, as his 2023 wasn't that great. But look, Skeens, in all honesty, probably should have won it last year, I think. It just didn't pitch enough. 23 starts, 1.9 ERA, 170 strikeouts, and only 133 innings.
Ridiculous.
And that season, Sandy pitched 100 more innings than him and only 50 less strikeouts. I mean, Skeens is absolutely ridiculous. The guy sits at 100 miles an hour. You can see right there, 101, a little two-seamer back inside. This guy's ridiculous. This guy gets the ball game one. You don't see pitching matchups like this with two complete horses on the mounds very often during the regular season, but you get to see it today. It goes down at Marlins Park. Another interesting side note about this game, Dan Marino is throwing out the first pitch.
Really?
If you know anything about Dan Marino, you obviously know he's a Florida legend, South Florida sports legend. He is from Pittsburgh. A little bit of an interesting side note, and then Florida opening up the game with a concert on the field. It's going to be a great day at Marlins Park.
Sounds like a perfect starting
It
opening
does.
day Marlins
yeah.
game. Any thoughts on that game, Robert?
I mean, the only question mark for me is how Sandy Alcantara is going to come back from his surgery.
Of course.
But I mean, he was truly dominant, and back then he was the hope for the Marlins, and his injury sort of started to spiral him downhill because they made the playoffs a couple years ago. People forget that as a wild card team.
Yeah, but nowadays pitchers are coming off Tommy John way better than they were. They're throwing harder. And hey, look, Sandy's a stud. I'm sure this Marlins rehab team got him right, and he'll be just fine. And he's ready to go.
Absolutely. Now, we are going to move into our third matchup of the day, and that's going to be yours, Robert, the Detroit Tigers at the Dodgers. Tell us about it.
I mean, Dodgers, huge money getting poured into this sport here for the Dodgers. I mean, they're going all in
You
with
can't
their
emphasize that
chips.
enough.
No, they're going all in on the blackjack table. That's really what's going on in LA. But as you talked about a pitching matchup, I know I'm going to later discuss the big three with the Dodgers with their hitting right here with Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani. Mookie Betts isn't going to be there. He's having some illness problems right now, and he will come back later in the year, hopefully. But just looking at these two, the starting pitcher for the Detroit Tigers is Tariq Skubal, arguably the best pitcher
I would agree.
last year. Absolutely dominant, 30% K rate as a starter. He walks under 5% of batters, and he had a 2.39 ERA, and his opponent's batting average was almost under 200, right? Then you're looking at probably the three greatest hitters on the West Coast right now, and arguably in baseball is the best big three in a lineup, with these guys able to go out and mash the ball. Freddie Freeman, legend in Atlanta, comes to LA, mashes the ball. He hit the home run in the World Series that sparked him in those early games.
Hit all of the home runs in the World Series.
Yeah. And then you got Shohei Ohtani, absolute legend at the plate. And then you got Tariq Skubal, who's been working. He added his changeup in the past 2 years, really. He came off an injury 2 years ago in 2023 season, and he threw a 2.8 ERA, and then last year backed it up with a 2.39. And so going out there, and he's going to shove.
Yeah, best lefty in baseball.
Oh, yeah, going up against a lineup that is extremely potent, extremely deep, with pockets lined with money. And that's not even mentioning Blake Snell is starting on the mound for the Dodgers. So another pitching matchup here, but
Ooh, two good lefties.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I think a big storyline in this game is the Dodgers obviously started 2-0, no problem beating the Cubs in Tokyo. And that was without Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, as we talked about. But for Skubal, I think this is perfect opening day to be facing Shohei. Like, that's a great test. Real quick, we don't have much time. What's one other game you guys are excited to see? Mine, maybe not as excited. More, it's the
Heard about
White
this
Sox
pre-show.
and the Angels, kind of a preview for the #1 pick, fighting for that. Robert, who are you excited to see?
I mean, we got Braves, Padres coming up, absolute dog in Michael King versus another stud lefty in Chris Sale with that wipeout slider.
Still a ton of injuries for those Braves. And Augie, how about you?
I got Boston versus Texas. Eovaldi gets started against his former team. Crochet, first time pitching regular seasons for the Red Sox. I like that game today, too.
Absolutely. You won't want to miss any of it. Again, that Yankees game starts in about 2.5 hours. Tune in for that. Thank you guys so much for coming on. After this commercial, we will be talking about F1, so don't go anywhere. Hello. Okay, great job.
I guess the crew's getting
Yes,
ready for the next segment on one of our amazing shows. I'm Nick Cohen, host of Season 20 of Hitting the Field, and let me tell you about those amazing shows. On behalf of HTF, we hope you're enjoying today's content, but I'm here to tell you about everything else we offer here at the network. Mondays at 4, HTF Bets goes live for Season 10 with 3 gamblers that, although it may not always seem like it, are here to help us all earn a little bit of extra money while we watch sports. Diego Ortiz, Tyler Brownrigg, and Andrew Gregg's ball knowledge and fun personalities make this show a fan favorite. On Tuesdays, you all loved it, so we brought it back for Season 2. It's Girls Got Game, hosted by Frankie Noble, a show blending women in sports, the biggest sports news stories, and creative segments that make for a fun and engaging show. Next is everyone's favorite sports podcast, The Combine, hosted by who other than Ty Patton, an easygoing, conversational, and technical podcast dropping Wednesdays, also on Spotify at The Combine. Then tune in Thursdays at noon for the network's main show, Season 20 of Hitting the Field, hosted by me. Here, we'll cover any sport, any topic, any story, no matter how obscure. We love some football, basketball, hockey, F1. We also cover baseball, soccer, and we even have to show the UFC love sometimes. Penultimately, TGIF, because Friday is nighttime, hosted by Kathleen Moore and Matthew Bracker. Season 8 of Nighttime is where you'll turn to for all things March Madness, UCF sports, and other collegiate events. We're ending with something brand new. HTFN has never had 6 shows running at once. Also filmed in our new podcast studio is HTFC, hosted by Edgar Rodriguez and Patrick De Leon. Football, or soccer in America, is the most popular sport in the world. Across multiple leagues and cups, soccer is a year-round sport, and HTFC is your new source to stay updated. Also on Spotify, by the way, at HTFC. Outside of our 6-show roster, be sure to tune in to our other content, such as the Studio Days vlog, run by our vlog squad of Brianna St. Jean, Michaela Croker, Ashley Rowe, and Ben Huber. Make sure to follow us on our social medias like Instagram, Facebook, and X to stay updated on all HTFN news. Remember to subscribe right here on YouTube, leave a like and comment. And with that, I think we're ready for your next segment. I'm Nick Cohen. Thank you for your continued support, and back to your regularly scheduled programming.
And welcome back. Joining me to my left, as always, is Andrew Gregg. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back to your left.
Absolutely.
Just like old times.
And we're talking F1. So
That's
I know
right.
we're all excited. Edgar, to my right, how are you doing?
For the first time on your right.
I believe so.
So let's get into it, man.
Absolutely.
Incredible start to the season.
Well, you kick us off, okay?
Well,
So
right
F1,
away.
the season started, a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
And it's been electric to start. It started with the Australian Grand Prix. Now kick us off, recap that.
So if you're new to F1, but first of all, welcome to the crazy world that Formula One has brought this season, especially since it's the last one of these current regulations. But like the Australian Grand Prix, oh my goodness, where do we begin? I mean, let's start in practice. Ferrari and McLaren looked to be the top 2 teams as expected. But going into qualifying, a dry qualifying, unlike the race, Norris took pole from Piastri by just 0.08 of a second. That was the same in the Chinese Grand Prix. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I mean, my goodness, what a start to the season. So then the race, wet conditions, and at Albert Park Circuit in Melbourne, it's a road track. So all those white lines from the roads that, are used on a daily basis other than that weekend made the conditions treacherous for the drivers. We had 3 safety cars, 6 DNFs, and in the end, it was kind of like a survival of the fittest, almost. And of course, Norris taking the first race win of the season. Antonelli, one of the best performing rookies of the weekend.
I'm going to be talking about him later.
Unbelievable, 4th place, and I think he relishes that.
Yes.
Out of all the rookies, he would have been the most confident and comfortable looking at those conditions, but an incredible race.
Absolutely.
Incredible weekend.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on that race, Andrew, before we jump into yours?
We need like 30 minutes to talk about it.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
mean, Edgar put it beautifully. I mean, what a qualifying, what a race that was. I mean, the conditions were absolutely treacherous. Like as you mentioned, there was only how many DNFs did you say? 6 DNFs.
6
like
total.
so, only 14 drivers actually even finished the race, and then one of those ended up being Kimi Antonelli, which you mentioned, 4th place, which is absolutely absurd. One of the best debuts we've ever seen in F1 history because of the fact that the conditions were so bad, and the fact that he is a rookie and he's 18 years old, only got his license a couple months ago. So just an absolutely beautiful race.
We're older than him.
Yeah, all 3 of us at the
Don't-
table are
don't
older
say
than him.
that.
So
Oh my
man.
God.
It's the truth, Nick. It's the truth.
It's so
But
bad. I'm not ready for that.
Another point on that, it didn't only catch out the rookies, it also caught out the likes of Alonso and Carlos Sainz. So that just again emphasizes how difficult it was. And yeah, like I said, I mean, also Albon in 5th place, already bettering Williams' points total from last year, and also Hulkenberg in the points, bettering Sauber's points total. So again, other unlikely drivers were able to take advantage of
Yeah,
that.
and then Albon in the post race was almost like it's unfortunate that this happened so quickly early on in the season for Williams, because a P5 for Williams is absolutely unheard of. That would have been their best qualifying result or race result all season last year, and then you mix it into the first race of the season. It's almost a little bit underappreciated, but I mean P5 for Williams. You can see why Carlos Sainz signed with them. Definitely like one of the teams that look to be on the up and up.
Well, and shout out you, Andrew Greg. Max Verstappen got second place in that race. Your boy.
Somehow, I mean,
Yeah.
they're not looking too good this year, but Max doing Max things as always, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Now,
we'll talk about Red Bull.
your race that you're going to be talking about is the Chinese Sprint. So jump right into how that went.
Yeah, so the Chinese Sprint was a lot less exciting than maybe the Australian Grand Prix was. I mean, the qualifying all year is going to be really close because of the fact that the cars are I think that McLaren has a bit of a step ahead over everybody else. But as we saw last year, Red Bull was far away ahead of everybody else by the start of the season and regressed massively. So depending on what upgrades come, the gap could either tighten even more or maybe McLaren separates even more. But Lewis Hamilton was the star of that show. He actually ended up qualifying first, and he was surprised that when he had P1, he was definitely surprised, and then carried that out into the race. I think won the race by more than 7 seconds. Oscar Piastri had a good performance too. But if you just look at this graphic, I mean, what more is there to say about Lewis? We finally see him in red. He's been talking about it, moved to Ferrari all of his career. He's wanted to be there at some point during his career. We all knew it was going to happen at some point. He finally gets there, and then it said on the graphic, 7 World Drivers' Championships, over 100 race wins. Like just one of the, if not, I have a little bit of bias to Max Verstappen. I don't think he's there yet, but currently the greatest overall driver of all time. So just his first win at Ferrari, even in a sprint, his first sprint race win ever. I think it was a really beautiful thing to see, even though the race wasn't as exciting.
Now, he was on a high from the Chinese Sprint. Unfortunately, the Chinese Grand Prix did not go the way he would have liked. Now, that's what I'm going to be talking about. He was disqualified after the rear skid block on his Ferrari car was found to be under the minimum thickness required. In the technical regulations, the rearmost skid was found to be below the minimum 9 millimeters thickness. Now, that's just really unfortunate to see.
So I looked up how thick half a millimeter is.
We have props
right?
on hitting
we
the
do,
field
we do.
now.
Let me get my wallet out.
Yes.
It's about this.
Wow.
The thickness of your credit card. That is what
Hide
we're
your
talking
numbers.
about. Yes. No one look at that. But it's the thickness of that, right? So I mean, it's incredible how much of a difference, or how strict the rules are. Of course, this is all to make sure that there's a level playing field.
And it has to be.
Those are the margins that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Thank you for doing that.
You're
extra
welcome. You're
research.
welcome. I just remembered that.
However, Hamilton was not the only driver to get disqualified in this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc was also disqualified due to a weight breach.
Yes.
And Fernando Alonso, he did not finish. He was forced to end it early because of his car having some brake issues. So those were some of the kind of unfortunates. But now getting into the actual race itself, who did place another 1-2 finish for McLaren, with Piastri this time getting first place. And he was in the lead, pretty much unchallenged throughout the race. Lando did get second. George Russell was back in the podium, third place. Back-to-back podium finishes for George Russell. Max Verstappen got fourth, and admittedly, he did say his car was a little difficult for him to drive, which was a little interesting. We did talk about Kimi Antonelli. I talked about him a couple months ago for his potential as a rookie in F1 this season. He got sixth and earned himself Driver of the Day, and he's been living up to that potential. Why do we laugh about that?
Driver of the Day is such
was a
nonsense.
surprise.
It's
It was a
such
surprise.
You know
nonsense.
what?
Even he was surprised that he got it. He didn't improve a single place on track. There were a lot of people that probably deserved that award over him. But I mean, he's a rookie driving
Exactly.
it.
He's had a good start.
Yeah,
He's
it
had a
was
good
definitely
start.
good. He had a good day, but Driver of the Day was a little bit absurd.
He does stand at fifth place in the driver's standings
Yeah.
with 22 points, and
Fair play.
he's eagerly searching for that first F1 win, but it'll come eventually. Now, just to recap the standings through 2 races and a sprint, Lando leads with 44 points. Max Verstappen is at 36 points, George Russell 35, and Piastri 34. And you hear Lando and Piastri, McLaren is obviously in number 1 for that standings. Now, something to note real quick, Liam Lawson got 12th in the Chinese Grand Prix, and he's going to be replaced.
He's out.
Yep.
He is out.
After
Very
two
quickly.
races.
Very quickly.
What about that? Yuki Tsunoda.
Sonoda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got
Very
it.
good.
Yep. He's replacing him.
Look, I have a lot to say about this, but
Yeah.
I'll try
He
to
got
keep it short.
16th in the Chinese Grand Prix. It's not like he's been necessarily impressive so far.
No, not at all. It's been a disastrous start for Liam Lawson, that has to be said. However, for Red Bull, they overlooked Sonoda for that Red Bull seat. So now you're backtracking already on your decision to put in Liam Lawson, who had only raced around 11 races in Formula One. You're overlooking him compared to Sonoda, who has already done a good 3 decent years with Racing Bulls. I mean, it's just a lose-lose situation for Red Bull. And also, Sonoda has the pressure now of performing at home.
Yep.
Andrew, how do you think this is going to go? Because imagine Sonoda has a stinker as well. Where do Red Bull go from there?
I mean, I don't think that you do this unless it's the Japanese Grand Prix. I think that the publicity that comes with the fact that
definitely
it
played a
will
role,
be Yuki's home race is definitely part of the reason they made this move so quickly. But I think that just in general, like what you were saying, there's no reason to make this move from the start. It should have just been Tsunoda if you liked him like that much.
There you go.
Because of the fact that like Nick said it, the car is difficult to drive. Like anybody but Max Verstappen, who is undisputably, I think, it's pretty hard to debate at this point, the best driver on the grid right now. He's like having to ring around the neck of the Red Bull just to put it into like P2 or P3 when even a couple months ago they had such a good team going around like winning almost every single race. So I don't know. Like the Tsunoda is going to have a hard time driving that thing. I think the car's just hard to drive in general. So they should just went with him from the start.
Well, and it's worth noting, I mentioned the standings right now and how Max is in second with 36 points. That's with Liam Lawson contributing 0 points to Red Bull this season.
Yep.
McLaren's in first, but that's because Lando and Piastri have been doing good. So Max Verstappen is still more than carrying his weight and now has a new partner to try and help.
Just really quickly, obviously we've only done like 3 races and like technically 2 Grand Prix, but I think the fact that Ferrari isn't in like any of these standings is definitely interesting, just because of the fact that like the disqualifications play a huge part of it. But you just think that they would be like a little bit more competitive. Obviously they have a really fast car, but the fact that they got disqualified from like both of their cars got disqualified from the last Grand Prix. Obviously they're not in the top 5 in the driver standings or any of their particular drivers. So it's just a rough start.
They have had a rough start. That's a perfect way of putting it. And I almost see that sprint win for Hamilton as a lonely high in between 2 lows for their start of the season.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, there isn't a Grand Prix this weekend, so you'll have to wait till the next weekend.
But then we get 3 in a row.
Yeah.
We do.
So
and I want to
prepare
give one
yourself.
other
Exciting
shout
stuff.
out because I saw this Kit Kat commercial. I don't know if you guys saw,
have
but
not.
Sergio
No.
Perez, he's doing some things. He was in a Kit Kat commercial, taking a break from F1 this season, so I'm happy to see him
Good for
doing
him.
something.
Good
Right,
for him.
exactly.
Hey, shout out Checo.
Yeah.
shout out, check out. Will he be back in 26?
We'll
22
just have to
seats.
stay
We'll leave that
tuned.
for another
We
episode.
will
Yeah.
have to stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Fun as always to talk
course.
F1. After this commercial, though, we will be talking about Women's March Madness, so don't go anywhere.
You never got me anything for my birthday.
I don't even know what that is. I thought birthdays were every 100 years like the Kids' Choice Awards.
What?
Ah, finally, he's here, man. Ah, he's always late.
Who?
Marcus?
You good?
I'd give them one of these and one of these.
Behind every on-screen moment is a whole team of engineers and technologists.
And you can be a part of such a team through SIMTI at UCF. You'll join a team of students just like you who are ready to innovate the future of TV and film.
With SIMTI at UCF, you'll be able to connect with local industry pros, learn about new technology in the industry, as well as get backstage experience that really matters. Join SIMTI for a backstage pass to all of this.
We meet every last Monday of the month for our general body meetings. There, we discuss how new technology is being used to create new media, and we get to highlight local professionals and their specialties.
On top of that, we have some site visits planned, so tune into our social media to be notified of when those will happen.
So if you're ready to pull back the curtain and find out what really happens behind the scenes, join SIMTI at UCF.
And welcome to segment 3. I'm not ranting today, but I do have Kathleen on to talk about Women's March Madness. How are you doing, Kathleen?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm so excited because this tournament's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Now, Kathleen has been killing it this week. On Monday, she co-hosted the Women's History Month show, which was amazing, so make sure to check that out. And then she has nighttime coming out tomorrow as well. But I'm told that your bracket is pretty much perfect.
I know.
You're sitting at what, 98%?
I know.
So talk about it so far. Who your bold winner pick is, your final 4.
Okay, so I'll just start right out the gate. My pick for winning the Natty is NC State. As I talk about on HTF all the time, I'm from North Carolina. My dad went to NC State. I love them. I couldn't go against them. Obviously, you can see my final 4 up on the screen. They're probably not going to beat UConn because Paige Beckers and UConn, they're just absolutely on a tear right now. But I think basically everyone predicted that UConn and South Carolina were going to be in the Final 4. And then Notre Dame, they've been doing really well in tournament play. I know they had a bit of a rough patch leading up to the tournament, but they've really settled into their ways throughout the round of 64 and the round of 32. So I'm really excited to see how they fare in Sweet 16.
Absolutely. Now, taking a look at the bracket as a whole thus far, with the Sweet 16 beginning this weekend, there hasn't been many upsets. In fact, most of them have been blowouts. I counted 17 of the 48 games have been won by 25 or more points, which I think is a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. Something about NC State, I want to talk about why they're such a dangerous team for March Madness this year. They've been holding all of their opponents throughout March Madness to under 60 points per game. And they're a 2 seed, you know, so they're not playing like the lows of the lows. Like they're not like these teams aren't going to score 30 points and that's it. But they've been doing really well. They have a very balanced scoring attack. They don't just rely on one star to carry the entire team. Like one team we might be perhaps getting into a little bit later. Potentially, but they also have a really elite defense. I mean, they've just been absolutely locking in, again, holding people to only 60 points per game. And then they have a lot of momentum. They've handled a tough season all season in the ACC, and now they're proving that they belong on this big stage, really proving why they're a 2 seed.
Absolutely. Now, we each really quickly, before we talk about that team that you may or may not have hinted about.
Hey, I didn't say the team,
No, you didn't reveal anything. We want to talk about a game from that's already been played in March Madness. Now, I'm going to go first because I want to. USF lost to Tennessee by 35 points. We always love to see a USF loss.
Yeah.
They got 100 on their head, led by Talasia Cooper's 20-piece off the bench. 20 points off the bench is ridiculous. I said it. We love to see a USF loss, and that's exactly what happened. They did make it to the March Madness tournament, which of course is impressive, but that's besides the point. They were bounced in the first round by Tennessee. Now, Kathleen, what game did you want to talk about? I also want to talk about this game. It was so exciting.
Yeah, Maryland versus Alabama. Double overtime, by the way. In the round of 32, it was 111 to 108. Oh my gosh.
That's ridiculous numbers for college basketball.
It's, women's college basketball specifically, like usually it's not like typically very high scoring unless you're a 1 seed playing a 16 seed. But holy crap, Sarah Ashley Barker, 45 points for her. 45, and they didn't even
45.
win. They didn't even win. 45 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists.
Ridiculous numbers.
What is
ridiculous
that? How
numbers.
do you put up
numbers a little similar to a player we're gonna just
perhaps
move right
another
into.
person that we
right,
know.
We're gonna reveal USC.
Yeah.
Okay. It
Tragic.
will be talked about on Nighttime tomorrow. They did lose Juju Watkins, unfortunately, in the round of 32 to a torn ACL. I've chosen not to play the highlight. It is absolutely she's in a ton of pain. It is hard to watch. Let's talk about Juju Watkins as a player, because I think we both agree that their title chances are not really there anymore. Talk about her as a player.
Juju Watkins is the equivalent to Caitlin Clark of last season, I would say.
And she was right up there with her.
Absolutely, as a freshman. So she's like a true sophomore. She's literally my age, which I really don't like thinking about, actually.
Right.
But, I mean, on average, she has just been ridiculous, averaging 26 points every single game. She is an absolute star. She's also great defensively. Her steals every game are amazing. So she deserves her flowers, and it's really sad to see her go out in this way.
Absolutely. Big Ten Player of the Year, multiple-time Defensive Player of the
Yeah.
Year. Over almost 24 points per game. She is absolutely
What can we
amazing.
say?
We wanted to give her flowers because we don't think USC is going to win the championship.
R.I.P.
However, that does do it for this episode of Hitting the Fields. Thank you very much, Kathleen, for coming
Thank you so
on.
much for having me.
You know, that just does it. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap.